Denver is one of those places that after people move out here, they either love it or they really wish they would have known a little bit more before making that big decision. In this video today, I'm actually going to be sharing with you guys some pros and cons, but not what you're probably typically used to hearing. As a 42-year Colorado and Denver native, I'm sharing stuff that us locals really do value and really are important before you ever consider coming out here to the Mile High City. Let's jump right into a brand new episode of Living in Denver. Let's go. All right, guys, so I'm not gonna waste your time. I'm gonna jump right into it today, but really quick, all that info down below. Reach out if you have any questions when going through today's video. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. So the first pro that I wanna share with you is all about how Denver right now is amazing for buyers. It's a buyer's market, which means that there's a lot more of inventory, a lot more homes for sale right now than there are active buyers. And that's the case around a lot of the country at the moment, but the one big challenge we're having is affordability. So the pro that I want to share with you guys is actually how Denver and Colorado in general, actually the state of Colorado, was just ranked as the #1 state in the entire nation for income growth. So with income growth in Colorado, what I'm referring to is how much it has increased from the prior year and how at difference that increase is the largest of anywhere in the nation. This is really good because in Colorado, one of the challenges we always have is the median household income is so far from the median home sales prices. That big disparity, that big difference between the two makes it really challenging for a lot of home buyers to make it a reality. So seeing that income a little bit higher with that median household income growth, that's great. That just means that we're getting a little bit closer to a more balanced state, like a lot of other places around the country that have a little bit more of a balance between those two. I also want to share with you guys another really exciting thing that just came out about Denver. Now, if you're a seller or even maybe a realtor like myself, these are not necessarily always the best things to hear, but what happened just a couple months ago in April of 2026, so Denver actually made national headlines just a few weeks ago, and it was because year over year, we showed the largest price drop. So this is great for buyers, obviously. For sellers, maybe realtors like myself, you have to kind of look at it at both ends of the spectrum here. But for a buyer, somebody that's maybe considering relocating out to Colorado, this is great. Not only do you have that leverage since it's such a strong buyer's market, you also now have a really significant amount of price reductions that you're seeing from this time last year. So you can obviously imagine different reasons for this. One of them, though, is just the fact that supply and demand. There's so much supply of homes in the Denver market right now, and there's just not that many active, serious buyers. So the longer the homes sit, sellers sometimes get a little bit desperate, or it's a reality that they realize in order to get this home across the finish line and sold, they're gonna have to most likely do a price reduction. So again, great opportunities for buyers to really get in at a good price point when buying a home. I tell a lot of my clients, my friends, really just anybody that I'm talking to about real estate that not all the time, but most of the time, you make the majority of your money on a really good deal in real estate. You make the majority of the best deals on the buy side, not on the sell. So again, we're kind of in a little bit of this dip right now where affordability is tough and there's just a lot of people just kind of on the sidelines, not pulling the trigger. Well, you really can have a great opportunity to find these homes at a good price, buy it at a low price, and just wait for the market to improve, the homes to appreciate. And in a state like Colorado, I just never see that changing. It's always going to be a popular place to live. And for that reason, especially, understanding when there are at these little low points being a great opportunity. Now, I want to next share with you guys my first con or negative about Denver in 2026, and this kind of goes along the same lines as the pro that I just shared with you, but a little bit different. So the first con that I want to talk about is just about the cost of living out here, and not specific to real estate, but just everything else that goes on. And some things are tied to real estate, but also just things like groceries, gas. I just was driving home this morning from the gym and I had to fill up, and I was paying almost $5 a gallon for gas. I know that's not normal right now. We have a lot of stuff going on right now in the world, but it's a very, very expensive time to live anywhere in the country, but Colorado is no exception. Now, when we also bring in real estate into the conversation, there's a lot of additional expenses you always have to be aware of when buying a home. It's not just that price that you see on Zillow. You might be in an HOA. HOAs, homeowner associations, they're pretty prevalent out here, and oftentimes those can be $300, $400, $500 or more a month. So again, some expenses that aren't necessarily on every home, but something to be very closely aware of. And then also annual property taxes. So every state's different. In Colorado, we have our annual property taxes updated every 2 years, and it's based on the assessed value of your home. And these are still going up despite all this stuff. So even though, for example, the real estate market's been a bit flat recently, when I had my property taxes about maybe 2 months ago come in at the beginning of the year, they were still up. They're still going up, even though the market doesn't really reflect the same exact dynamic. And just to talk about taxes for one more second, really important to also realize when you guys are looking at homes. In Denver, taxes really can vary from where the home is located. So I just have one quick example. If you look at a map and you see an area called Sterling Ranch, it's in the southwestern part of Denver. This is a newer build community. I really like this area. It's pretty close actually to where I live, but this is an area where the annual property taxes are pretty high. They're about 1.4%. So you buy a $500,000 home, you're looking at about $7,000 for your annual property tax. Now that same $500,000 home in a different area in Denver, maybe an area that's a little bit more developed and mature, a little older of an area, maybe they don't have quite as much development going on and infrastructure needs and other things that are gonna increase those property taxes. Some of these other areas are as low as 0.4, so less than 0.5%. So that same $500,000 home, now we're looking at maybe $2,500 a year. So things like that, pretty significant difference. If you find a home that has an HOA and is in a higher, tax area like Sterling Ranch, that difference of a monthly payment compared to an area in Denver that doesn't have an HOA and is a lower tax percentage, pretty major significant difference there. And then one last expense that you really need to be aware of depending on where you're coming from in the country to Colorado. Out here in Denver, and just really Colorado as a whole, we're dealing with a lot of fire danger recently. It's nothing that's new, but man, recently we've been really hit hard. If you guys remember a few years back, we had an incredibly scary fire just outside of the Boulder area. Over 1,000 homes were affected, and it happened right around the holidays, right at the very end of the year. A very strange time to have a major fire. But this is an example though, where after this type of stuff happens, the insurance rates go through the roof. So there's even areas now that are having a hard time getting insurance depending on if they're really close to the trees, just like some of the areas that are in the foothills going up to the mountains, Evergreen, Conifer, Bailey, some of those areas. So just really want to make a clear point that home insurance, taxes, there's other expenses outside of just the cost of the home that are really important to also be aware of. And I think this is a little bit of a con for some people because just anywhere in the country, it's a very expensive time to live. And this obviously affects your pocketbook if you're considering buying a house. Now, my second pro is one that I am very passionate about. And this is all about how Denver really does have this perfect balance. And leave a comment down below if you disagree, but I think the perfect balance of a place to live is when you have a great urban area where you have a ton of stuff to do on the weekends, concerts, professional sporting teams, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, which I think is just as important, you also have the great outdoors, Mother Nature to enjoy, and not to have it be a 2-hour drive just to go enjoy it. You can do this in 10-15 minutes in some cases, depending on what part of town you live in. So I just love how you have this great balance between the two. Yeah, there's a lot of great cities around America. I think of places like New York, Chicago, LA, all these big name cities. And yeah, so they do have some outdoor spaces, nearby, but nothing compares to Denver, where literally you can get off work at 4 in the afternoon, take a 5 or 10 minute drive, and you're already in areas where you can go mountain biking, hiking, catch the sunset from up on the hills where nobody else is around you. I just think that's so important right now, probably more than ever, just for the mental health. So I love that about Denver, and I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I never plan on leaving, because I just love that active, healthy lifestyle that it provides us and that outdoors access on a daily basis, not a weekend warrior type thing, but literally if you want to get out every single day, it's very possible when you live in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Now, I want to share with you guys the second con, and I put this one in this order for this reason, because this one also kind of plays off what I just talked about with the outdoor lifestyle that Colorado and Denver provides. So yes, it does provide an incredible lifestyle, but it is so important to be understanding of the Denver metro area in picking where you live, choosing the right side of town that best fits what you prioritize and look for the most. So if you guys are into the outdoors, like I was talking about a minute ago, it is really important. I don't know how many reallys I can tell to make this point really important. You gotta live on the western side of Denver if you want to have the access where it's gonna be a reality and it's gonna happen on a regular basis. Let me explain. I've had friends that have moved out here and they've picked places that are a little bit more affordable, or maybe there was more options, so they ended up just kind of, without really thinking through, bought a house or got into a long-term rental in areas that are a little bit further away on the eastern side of Denver, or pretty far up north. So some areas that I'm referring to, it could be up north in areas like Thornton and North Glen, maybe even a little bit further areas like Brighton and Erie, or even going down a little bit to the southeast in some parts of Aurora. Great areas to live, but if you really want to get out and enjoy the outdoors on a very regular basis, like I said, after work on a weeknight, when you live on those sides of town, you just have to fight traffic. You have to deal with so many obstacles just to get out to the trails and to enjoy that western slope. And yeah, you can do it, but a couple days of doing this and getting stuck in rush hour traffic, and you're in your car for an hour after work when that's the last place that you want to be, it gets old, and you're probably not going to continue to do that, again, like on a daily basis. So when you live on the western side of town, areas like Wheat Ridge, Golden, even parts of Arvada, or where I'm at, down in the southwestern side of town like Littleton, when you're so much closer, it just becomes a more realistic reality where you can actually achieve this stuff. And that is when you have that perfect balance that I was talking about earlier. So the con that I'm trying to get at here is just how Denver is a major city at this point, and with so many different areas. A lot of people that aren't that familiar with Denver that come out here, maybe even to buy a home, they don't think about this until it's too late. A lot of people buy their first home, and then a couple years later, this is one of the first things that I hear is, hey Adam, yeah, we're thinking about selling. We just really want to be closer to the mountains. We want to be closer to that outdoor active lifestyle, which is the whole reason that we moved to Colorado in the first place. So make sure you guys are really aware of that. And not to give a plug here, but on my Denver website, it's adamshillsdenver.com, I have this map of Denver, and it's actually got 20 of the coolest, the best parts of Denver, but all of Denver, not just my favorites, just literally the entire Denver metro area. And all of these, you can click on them, it's interactive, and you can learn a little bit more about each, what's really popular in those areas, maybe some of the best schools based off of ratings on niche.com, and also just understanding really that layout of what each area within Denver best serves. So if you guys haven't checked that out yet, make sure you do. And I definitely think you guys are gonna find some stuff in there that might be an eye-opener for you and maybe help you get a little bit more dialed in when that search time comes. Okay, so now my last pro, and I know that all three of these are somewhat similar, but I'm doing these because I really think these are the most important things for the most amount of people, and they just don't get talked about quite as much as some of the more kind of, cookie cutter type pros and cons videos maybe you've already watched on YouTube. So this third one is just really taking that active, healthy lifestyle to the next level. And what I want to talk more specifically about is how it's so much easier out here than most likely maybe where you're watching this video from tonight. And the reason for that is it's not just about the outdoors and what's around you, it's also just as important, the people that are around you. Colorado brings a certain type of person out here to live. A lot of people really enjoy the outdoors. They're healthier, they're more active. And if maybe you're somebody that has some goals this year to get in better shape, or just to really have that mental health priority of getting out into the Mother Nature and the outdoors more often, yes, not only does Denver provide that, but also so many more people here have that same goal in mind. So it's much more easier to find your tribe, your group of people that are also gonna help push you to be even more outdoorsy, to get into better shape, and just to have a more active and healthy lifestyle. I've had friends that have moved here from other big cities, and that's one complaint that a lot of them have had, is just that they've had a hard time if they're not into the nightlife and the bar scene and drinking every weekend, if they're really more prioritizing that health and wellness type lifestyle. Out here, it's very easy to find those other people and make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable with the people around you. Lots of great intramural activities, lots of great easy ways nowadays on social media to connect and carpool up to the ski hills on the weekends, or just find people to go hiking with. In fact, where I live, it's called Grant Ranch. It's a master plan community here in that Littleton area that I mentioned. And I get notifications almost on a weekly basis about, hey guys, we're meeting up on Tuesday night. We're gonna go for a hike nearby. It's within 15 minutes of here. In fact, I saw that last week they went on one to an area called Roxborough. You guys can see on this little B-roll that I'm showing right now, Roxborough is awesome. And this is, again, very close to Denver. You can get here in about 10 minutes from my house. So there's a lot of great stuff like this out your back door, and so many people that also are gonna be interested in the same stuff you are and are gonna push you to be even better and even healthier. I love that about Colorado, and I think it's definitely one of my favorite things. So definitely a big pro in my opinion. Okay, and then last but not least, the third con And this one, yeah, it can be pretty big for some people, but other people, they just kind of shake it off. And that's talking about the environment that Colorado has out here, and especially in Denver. Very, very dry air. A lot of, different weather depending on the time of year that can really affect just how dry it is. My girlfriend jokes, we have these little like chapstick things that she has, and they're all over the house, in her cup holder in her car, in her bedroom nightstand, on our kitchen counter. They're all over the place because it's so dry, and it's just something that, you're putting on 10 times a day. Also the sun is very, very intense out here. Because we're a little bit higher up in elevation, we're at the mile high, 5,280 feet, but also if you're, getting out to the outdoors and going up skiing or going up to the mountains for hikes, all that good stuff, you're even higher in elevation, and that just means the sun is even stronger. So if you have any sort of sun sensitivity, whether that be, you sunburn easily, or maybe you can even feel like you get kind of a heat stroke or some sun rash. In Colorado, that's no joke. A lot of people are very cautious of that. So maybe if you're fair skinned or you just have some of those concerns, just be aware that you have to be a little bit more cautious out here. Definitely always keep some sunscreen as well as that chapstick in your car. And as long as you're prepared ahead of time and just do what you're supposed to do, it's not that big of a deal. But there are people though that can be a concern, not just the dry air, but also even that elevation and the difficulty of breathing. I have some clients that move out here that are a little bit older in age, people that are maybe in their 60s, 70s, kind of in that third or fourth chapter of their life. Some of these people have reached out and just asked me, how hard is it to breathe in Denver? I'm worried about my parents being able to come out and visit if it's too difficult for them to breathe. Well, that can be a concern. So one thing I will say to that is if you're not a visitor, but if you're actually coming here to live, people that do have those challenges at first, it tends to kind of go away after time. So you do acclimatize, I think I said that right, acclimatize to the elevation over time. So be aware of that yeah, you could feel that effect at first, but most often it goes away after you've been here for a few months. Okay guys, so with that being said, let's just close this one out. I really wanted to give you some valuable info on this one, so hopefully it helped. Before we leave though, down below, check out our next live Denver homebuyer webinar. This is for anybody that is even considering moving out here, and I would love for you guys to join the next one. Again, just go to denverwebinar.com. One of my best friends, he's also one of the top mortgage lenders in the entire country. Him and I host these at least 2 times a month. We actually have a new one now that we're doing all about affordability and how to overcome that. So if you guys are considering coming out here, I would love to see you on the next one. It's free, it's online. Again, denverwebinar.com. But with all that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.